pretty soon after I moved to New York, I booked Orange is the New Black and Super Dark Times back to back. And it was really just a situation of like all of a sudden I was making the switch without consciously doing it. So once I had been on Orange and been, doing Super Dark Times and the other TV shows I did in New York, when I started to write, I just felt like in terms of what I wanted to write, the reach that I wanted was I could do it more in film and TV than I could in theater.
Well, Max, welcome to From Vision to Creation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited. I have to tell you, I just watched your debut film last night.
Okay.
And I thought it was amazing.
Thank you.
So it's just so beautiful. It's not conventional at all.
Thank
and
you.
I mean that in the best way possible.
Thank you.
So I really want to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And, first of all, I want to talk about how you first discovered your passion for acting and storytelling. I want to talk to you about your experience working in television and film.
Yeah.
And then, of course, making the leap, starting your own production company and creating this film.
Yeah.
So let's start at the begging.
Let's start at the beginning. It's a long time ago. So yeah. When we started at the beginning with me, it's like years and years. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot. You've done a lot, so we have a lot to cover.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Let's go back to your childhood.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you had an affinity and a passion for storytelling?
For theater specifically, and like, the medium of acting and, what became film, it was when I was 3 years old. My grandfather took me and my twin sister to see Cats at the National Theater. And like, you can't, write something that's like this sort of poetic because it was like this perfect night. I grew up in DC. So it was a perfect night. It was a blizzard. So when I say perfect night, I'm a weirdo. I love cold. I love snow. Like, I love it. But it was a blizzard, and it was right around Christmas. And there's this very old famous restaurant in DC called Old Ebbitt Grill. And so my grandfather took us there before the show, and it had like these giant like nutcrackers outside, and it was blizzarding, and it was just like, it was a sense of like, it was going to be a magic night. And I remember it, and I was 3. So then we went to see Cats, and I was just kind of never the same. Like, I was like, I need to be there. I need to be telling these stories either as an actor, as a whatever. Like, I just felt called to, be a part of it. And that's when the journey like of being driven to be there started. But I started doing musical theater, and originally like I would just kind of sing around the house. And my mom, who had a degree in theater from Northwestern, would be like, "Oh, it's so cute. I only wish he could sing." And then Moulin Rouge came out in like 2001, so I was still really young. And the operatic Moon in Moulin Rouge, I would sing along with that. And then my mom was like, "Wait, what's going on here? Like, he can sing with the operatic Moon." So after that, she put me in voice lessons very quickly. And I was in my first show by the time I was 8. Yeah.
Wow.
Or 9. 8 or 9. Yeah.
So you grew up in DC. I know you lived in New York City for a while.
Yeah.
When did you decide to make the move to New York City?
Yeah. So I grew up right outside DC in Bethesda, Maryland, which is about 5 to 10 minutes outside the actual city. And I grew up doing professional theater in DC, starting when I was 11 is when I did my first professional show. And from there, I just kind of worked in the theater scene in DC. And when I was 15, I think, is when I got my first manager in New York. And that's when I started auditioning in New York. I did end up going to college for 2 years. I went to Syracuse University for 2 years. And after the 2 years, I was like, you know what? Like, I kind of want to go for it now. I was lucky that I had a team in New York. So that's when I made the move. I was 20. I just turned 21, actually. And I made the move to New York City. And I lived there for 6.5 to 7 years. And now I'm here in LA.
You got a manager at 15 years old. That's really impressive because it's not super easy to find a manager at the beginning of your career.
it's not easy to find a manager now. I mean, like I recently like switched, and it was a process. So I respect the little 15-year-old who made it happen for sure.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. How did you make that happen?
I was in a program called Broadway Artists Alliance, which was like a program with a bunch of different theater kids, and you would get to take master classes with Broadway performers, people like Sutton Foster. Like she would teach a class, and I took one with Karen Olivo, which was awesome. Like I learned a ton doing that program, and met some amazing friends. Margaret Berkowitz, who plays Chloe and things like this. Her and I are still best friends, and we met doing Broadway Artists Alliance that year. So I at the end of it, there was a showcase for managers and agents, and I was one of the lucky few who got a call from it. And from there, I worked with my manager, Jody Prusan. I worked with her for 12 years. We worked for a very long time until I moved to LA. That's when I think we worked one more year, and then I was like, I still keep in touch with her, but it became clear that, as my career was shifting more into being not just an actor, but, also a multi-hyphenate, it just, I needed someone who could also expand with me. And I love Jody, but it was something where it was needed to be someone here on the ground with me.
And Max, at what point did you make the shift from Broadway and plays
Mhm.
to film and television?
Yeah, I think it was really when I moved to New York and I started auditioning for not just theater. So all of a sudden, I was being put in rooms for film and TV. And pretty soon after I moved to New York, I booked Orange is the New Black and Super Dark Times back to back. And it was really just a situation of like all of a sudden I was making the switch without consciously doing it.
Mm.
So once I had been on Orange and been, doing Super Dark Times and the other TV shows I did in New York, when I started to write, I just felt like in terms of what I wanted to write, the reach that I wanted was I could do it more in film and TV than I could in theater.
Hmm.
Theater is, an incredible art form and still probably my favorite as a viewer. But in terms of, being accessible to everyone, it's not at that point yet.
Right.
So I think that's really where my mindset and shift happened. It was when I was writing.
Oh, okay, interesting. And
Yeah.
see, I'm always interested in how people make those kind of shifts in their career, and it's
Yeah.
usually very similar. It's like you pursue one thing,
Yeah.
and then one thing in the arts leads to another, which leads to
Absolutely.
another.
Yeah, I mean, I think my theater background makes me creative in the way I am.
Hmm.
And it also makes me, look at things always in a collaborative lens on sets. And I think I wouldn't be doing film without starting in theater.
Mm.
So, I see it as, a continuous journey. And obviously, like, if a theater opportunity or, something happened where I felt a call to create something in the theater world, I would absolutely explore that. Like, I don't feel
Hmm.
like the journeys have been exclusive. I feel like they've been very much a part of the same thing.
That's so cool that you're saying that though, because I feel that sometimes people think that they need to pick one thing and just stick to
Yeah.
that, but that's definitely not the case.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you see, like, obviously, there's a lot of celebrities who do shows, right? There's a lot
Hmm.
of people who go back to their theater roots. And I
Hmm.
think it's because anyone who starts in theater, it's this very, like, formative, beautiful, magical thing. And it never leaves you, right? Like,
Hmm.
it never is something that leaves us. So, yeah, definitely, I would feel like if I were to go back to theater, it would just be the same journey still.
Do you feel that it's more difficult to shift from theater to acting or from acting to theater?
I think for me, there's this thing that people always say, which is that like I think it's the wrong approach, which is that theater acting is bigger and film acting is smaller. I think that's a complete wrong approach. I think when you're doing a film and when you're film acting, it's not necessarily smaller. In fact, it's I always look at it as more personal.
Hmm.
You're very close and so it's intimate. And that means that everything you do has more weight. So it's almost like shifting from one to the other. Theater acting to me is it's the same thing, but you're performing for so many people,
Mhm.
whereas the film acting is just you and the camera or you and your scene partner. Um, and I think the thing that was hardest for me in shifting from theater to film was the non-immediate feedback from an audience.
Oh,
That was
interesting.
the hardest thing. It was
Yeah.
you have no clue if these jokes are landing. You don't know, if the director likes it until they call cut. So you're more on your own.
Mhm.
Whereas in theater, you get an immediate response, whether it's laughter, whether it's a gasp, that kind of thing. You know how you're doing. And in film, you don't. You don't know how you're doing until it's cut is called and you get the feedback. But you have to, like, for me, I would say film acting is more intimidating because you're more out there on your own.
Mhm.
Whereas I always felt like the audience was there to support you in theater. And so it was much less nerve-wracking for me to perform in theater.
Whoa. Okay, I'm so glad I asked because I actually thought the opposite would be true.
No, I mean, like, as a performer, like, I'm someone who loves an audience.
Mhm.
So having them feels like support. It doesn't feel intimidating. It
R
feels welcome.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And after years of in television and film, I've heard you talk about being cast in roles that lacked depth and desire,
Yeah.
which it sounds to me like that was the impetus for your creating your own feature film.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I after I did those, the work that I was doing in New York, I was just there were less auditions and everything I was auditioning for felt very similar to what I had done. Like it felt like, oh, you can keep playing the funny fat friend. Like that's what you can do. And I just was like, you know what? I want to expand. I want to try more things. And I felt that I had a call to do it. Like I needed to.
Mhm.
And my acting coach, Amelia Campbell, was like, "Have you tried writing?" And I think it's this thing that like every actor at one point gets told you should try writing, create
Mhm.
your own content. And so for me, I was like, no, but like I don't like I didn't feel like it was necessary, basically. I was like,
Mhm.
at first I kind of fought against it, but she brought it back to me and was like, I think you should write. She's like, I don't tell this to everyone. I'm not that person, but I think you should write. So I did. I sat down and I started with, a script that was just about my life. And it was this project called Max Out, which was the first thing I ever did. And I wrote 13 episodes of that in like 6 months. Like I was just
Wow.
like kind of steamrolling through it. And that's where I met Buzz Koenig, who's the producer who I still work with and produced things like this. And when I met him, it was like really, I think, when things really kind of shifted into full gear of like, I am now someone who's not only an actor, I'm expanding into these other things as well. And it was due to the feeling of I needed to create roles for myself as the actor.
Mhm.
So it was still, in service of that career. And I think in a way, it's not only in service of that for me, but, hopefully there's other actors as well who, will have this door opened or will, have an opportunity to audition for a leading man if they, didn't have it before because someone saw things like this or saw whatever we, do next. So, um, yes, it was to open doors. And, it's funny how things start and how they just kind of become a seed and, grow into being here. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And after writing that series about your life, the
Yeah.
13 episodes, how long after that did you start writing things like this?
Only a few months. So I wrote that series and then wrote, I was going to write a horror film. So I
Mm.
started to write this thing and like, it was so bad. Like, I can't even, it's one of the worst things to ever exist on this earth. It's so bad. There's only one person alive who's read it other than me. And it's, my best friend and business partner. He's the only person who's ever read it because it's horrendous. But the reason why it is because it kept devolving into comedy. It wanted to be a comedy.
Oh.
And I I was fighting myself in, trying to stick to this horror. And so when that kept happening, I was like, I'll just write once again kind of what I know, which was dating in New York City at that time. And a rom-com. I grew up with rom-coms. I grew up my dad will right now, I'll go home and he'll be chilling on the couch watching Definitely Maybe for the 500th time. So he loves them and they were always on. And I uh I just felt like, let's start there. And things like this, the first draft was written in 3 or 4 days.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was like first draft was like that. Like I couldn't stop. Um and from there, obviously I think there's only one scene that remains from that draft, to be honest. I think
Whoa.
everything changed. But still, it's that thing of like, once I started writing what I was actually meant to, it just very quickly happened.
I want to go into the process of your writing the final script and
Yeah.
then actually creating a film because
Yeah.
that is no small feat. So,
Yeah.
congratulations,
Thank
number
you.
one. And I definitely want to jump into that. But before I do, I want to point out one thing that I actually really appreciated about the film that I've heard you speak about too. And actually, I appreciated this before I heard you speak about it.
Okay.
It's not a coming out story.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh, like we're in love, but we're scared to tell our friends and family,
Right.
or what's
Right.
society gonna think?
Right.
And it's refreshing because it never occurred to me until watching things like this that most LGBTQ anything, the
Mhm.
whole plot is centered around being closeted
Yeah.
and people finding out and fear of repercussions,
Right.
etc. So it almost like I'm glad. Okay, I want to be careful what I say because I want to say this right.
Yeah.
I'm glad that those stories exist
Yeah.
because that's true and that
Yes.
happens to a lot of people. So
Yeah.
thank goodness those stories are out there.
Right.
However, that's not all there is when
Right.
it comes to a same sex relationship
Yeah.
or any queer relationship for that matter.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, it's not even something that I did consciously myself. Like, just when writing from my point of view, it wasn't something that I felt needed to be part of the conversation
Hmm.
of what I was writing. And I didn't realize, I think until after I was writing it and I shared it with Buzz, that Buzz was like, this isn't like no one comes out here. And I was like, yeah, no, like, but it was, Love Simon had just come out when the first draft happened. Alex Strangelove had just come out. Like they were coming out stories and they were groundbreaking because we didn't have really any queer films of that size at the time, of things of that budget and with actors who we knew, right? Like the fact that Jennifer Garner plays the mom in Love Simon was a big deal.
Right.
And we just didn't have those kind of films. So I think for my film to exist, they do have to exist. And I think it's a starting point, right? Like the coming out conversation is strangely maybe the easiest thing for straight people to understand in a way because
Mhm.
everyone kind of has to come out as something. Like everyone has to have that conversation in some way, right? So I think when, straight people like see it through that lens, they're like, "Oh, like I get why this would be nerve-wracking. I get why you
Mhm.
would be afraid or nervous to tell your friends and family." So I think it makes sense as why it started that way. But yeah, no, I think it's obviously a specific part of a queer person's journey. And,
Mhm.
more and more, I've heard that there are Gen Z kids who are just living their lives and aren't even, coming out. And I think, obviously that's in specific places and in supportive communities. But, I think that for me, I didn't feel like it was necessary to make it a part of these characters' journey. What,
Mhm.
for me, when I wrote this, I was, I think 25 or 26. So coming out to me was years ago. It was 7 years ago, right? So it wasn't something I thought of on a daily basis anymore. It wasn't something that was constantly, you know, part of my life anymore. It was just going out on dates and just, telling my friends about these dates. And so that's really what it was. It wasn't something I was consciously doing, but after I wrote it, I realized that it only exists now in a few films as well. Like, I think there's more now, but it's not overwhelming. There's still most of the queer romance content still has some sort of coming out aspect attached.
Yes, and I think it's important that people get to see, uh, people get to see same-sex relationships, queer relationships in film beyond that point.
Yeah,
And I also have to say, most of the coming out stories that we see on TV or in film are not like the happiest ones,
right.
but that's not always the case. Like I remember when I first told my dad I was gay, um, he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, Alexander, no shit." He's like, "You wanted to be the Little Mermaid in kindergarten for Halloween. You did better cartwheels than all the girls." He's like,
Yeah.
"We know. Can I get back to my FIFA, please?"
Yeah,
Like, it
exactly,
wasn't
yeah.
this crazy thing.
Yeah.
So,
I was lucky too. I was very supported when I came out. And I think that we do in media see a lot of um just afraid to come out, or like the family won't
yes.
be as supportive. But yeah, no, I think, there are a lot of people who are luckily and fortunately supported when they come out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Max, I want to go back to your script
Yeah.
of things like this. So, you do the first draft in a few days.
Mhm.
How long does it take you to revise the script until you're like, "Okay, this is it. This is the one."
7 years.
Okay.
I mean, like, it was evolving for a long, like, until we shot the film. I wrote the first draft
Mm.
in, I guess, 5 years. So, I wrote the first draft in 2017, and then we shot the film in 2022. So, until then, there's, a million different drafts. Things are changing every day. And as you get closer, more things are changing. And they're little things, right? Like all of a sudden you need to change a location because a location wasn't available. So instead of having it be in outside, it's raining. So now they have to be in a coffee shop. So you just need to like change it from saying exterior park to interior coffee shop.
Mhm.
It's that kind of thing that does change. But when we did Super Dark Times, we would improv on set. And things like this, there's a lot of improv too. So there's stuff that makes it that isn't even in the script, right? When you're actually shooting. And there's a lot that was in the script that didn't make the final cut. So I think what was written in that very first draft, like I said, I think there's one scene that I think there's two. I think the opening scene had some similarities, and I think the scene, yeah, I think actually that's it. I think it's just the opening scene.
And so once you finish or once you have the script ready enough to where you're like, okay, we want to start actually creating this thing,
Hmm.
how do you go about like finding a team, finding the actors, getting the funding? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a huge project. And I know you know that, but
yeah.
I think that I think most people don't realize like how incredible what you did was.
I think, thank you. But that's why it took 7 years. It's this, and also, by the way, I've heard from many people that's not that long of a timeline for an independent film. I'm someone who likes to be go, go, go. So for me, 7 years felt endless. But I think for an independent film, it's actually a first independent film for someone too. It's a pretty short runway. But I think, your question is sort of multi-layered because the number one thing is what comes first, the financing or the casting? Everyone always wants to know that. And the truth is that there is no answer. Like it's whatever you have sort of more of a window to, right? So for me, I already had some friends who I knew that like if they liked the script and if I was able to get them involved, it might lead to some financing. So luckily, my friend Charlie Tahan, loved the script. We'd done Super Dark Times together, and he had just spent the last few years at that time doing Ozark as one of the leads of it. So I knew if Charlie wanted to do it, it would, it would be great. Also, because I would get to work with one of my best friends again. But it would also, help. It would help my project, and so luckily he did, and that was really the first, thing that we were able to put attached to the project. And when I moved to LA, I signed with a new agency, and they rep also Eric Roberts. So that was the next thing was we got Eric Roberts through my agency, And then it was really during 2020 and 2021, and really up until we were shooting, that we were adding elements to the cast. And I was actively also literally on Zooms raising money during filming. Like, I was like, we are going no matter what. And so we did, and we started, and luckily it didn't, the ground didn't crumble beneath my feet. I was able to be fundraising through it. And a lot of those, connections into financing, we called everyone under the sun. And then I was really fortunate that my original, familial and friend connections in DC came through because of my parents and their friends. Like, it was really like my dad started to introduce me to all of his friends who worked in, DC, and who sort of like were excited by the idea of supporting a filmmaker and being a part of a film, because it's not it's not the industry they were in. They were in politics, and they were in, tax and whatever. And so it was like this opportunity to get to be a part of a film was exciting. And I was, lucky that my dad put me on those calls, but also I had to be extremely prepared
Mhm.
because these are people who don't, screw around with their money or their finances. Like, you have to really like have a full plan and be like, like, if something falls through, this is how we correct it. Like, this is, what we intend to do with, putting it out in theaters, like all of this stuff. So throughout it, I was always very transparent with them too about where the film was, what was going on. If an actor dropped out, I was like, don't worry, we will replace them with someone of like, you know, honestly, like the same sort of what would it would mean for the project, like the same kind of actor or someone of higher I don't want to say value for an actor, but like these are finance people. So at the end of the day, like it was about that. It was really about like numbers on a spreadsheet to these people. And I am so not that. Like, I
Mm.
am very like, my dad is a tax lawyer, and he's an amazing, mathematician basically. And so growing up, he would sit with me at the table, and we'd be doing math, and he'd be like, "Why don't you remember this? We did it yesterday." And I'd be like, "I don't know." Like, cuz I'm thinking about, the theater, I'm thinking about the rehearsal I have later. I'm memorizing. Like, my brain is full. And I hate math. So it wasn't ever part of something that I thought I would, be involved in, but I had to obviously be super on top of it with these people on these calls. So once again, it was an endless process in this 7 years, but luckily, like, it did end up being something where both the right cast and the right financing came in, and we were able to make the film.
Well, it's funny because hearing you say this, I asked a friend of mine who's a producer and DJ. I said, "When do you know a song is done?"
Hmm.
And he said, "As soon as you export the final version and you
Yeah.
put it out there, then
Yeah.
it's done."
Right. Until you can't fix it anymore, until you don't, you,
Right.
like, can't put your hands on it anymore, that's when it's done. There are moments of the film that I would probably change now, like, or that I would go
Mhm.
back and look at. But I this is why I haven't watched the film in like 6 months. It's because I can't. And
Yes.
I don't have the ability to go back and, change anything, or move things around, or, change ADR. Like, it is what it is, and it is in my I love the movie. So I'm
Mhm.
happy it's what it is. But I'm also, sort of a perfectionist. So like, I obviously, if I watched it, I would be still taking notes right now. Yeah.
And Max, so okay, you get to the point where you have the film is done.
Mhm.
Now what?
We did a few screenings, and we invited like sales agents, we invited some like industry people, and we really like kind of took the temperature of the room, and
Mm.
it was like, who are we going to work with in this next process? Obviously, being an independent film, we had sort of two routes. We could go festivals, or we could go like, let's try to sell it. And we did go, let's try to sell it. And the reason for that was that festivals, um, it was right after COVID, and it was hard to really like sort of predict how these festivals were evolving, especially for an
Oh.
independent film. And a lot of them were also sort of going 50-50. Some like they would do in-person screenings and some digital. And we didn't want to, be put on the digital slate because it's a crowd pleasing film. We wanted to be in theaters. We wanted people to laugh. And so we went the sales agent route, and it wasn't easy, but luckily, that's when we met this company, MPX. And MPX originally came on as a sales agents. And then I want to say like 6 months after they started working with us as sales agents, they were like, listen, like the industry's completely changed and no one is, doing what we want for your film. They were like, but we want to do it. They were like, we want to put it in theaters. We want to be the ones to give this film the platform it needs. So they came up with a whole business plan, and they got Falling Forward Films involved, who are the ones who ended up, distributing it with them. They got Shout Factory involved, and through this years long process, they are the ones who release things like this in theaters and then digitally. And it really started with just the fact of like we trusted them. Like you have this, thing which is so precious to you. And obviously, like it had been really hard for me to give it to anyone else. I did so much on it. And I had to really feel this affinity and this trust for these people. And I do. I trust them to this day. I think they're friends for life. I think they're people who I will work with again. And they believed in this film and they put it out there, and they put themselves on the line for it. And at the end of the day, I think it goes back to my number one rule in the industry, which is trust your instincts. It's always trust your instincts because have your best sort of measure of who are the right people to work with, who are the right people to collaborate with, and also like just does the situation feel right at all
Hmm.
times. It. So trust your instincts. And my instincts were that their plan was correct and that it was sort of the best plan for us to put the film out there. So, looking back on it, I would make that choice again. And yeah, I'm thrilled that we got a theatrical run. So many independent films don't. And so many queer films don't have a theatrical run. So just the fact that we were able to, have that and carry that momentum into digital, like that was really exciting.
And Max, for people who have not seen the film yet, first of all, watch it. It is incredible. You wrote it,
Hmm.
directed it, produced it, and starred in it.
Yeah.
That to me, I mean, that blows my mind. And I remember the first time, and I'm sure I'd seen something where that had happened before, but the first time that I ever saw anything like that was Girls. Lena
Oh
Dunham.
yeah. Yeah.
So when I was reading about you, and then I watched the film,
Yeah.
a bunch of questions came up. First one being, how does one star in and direct a film at the same time?
Trust. Hiring the right team. Like that's the biggest job. It's hiring the right people. And luckily I also knew that if I was going to be on camera, I needed to have an associate director, someone who was behind the camera when I was on, who could tell me like that was a great take, come watch playback, or also we need to do it again and this is what you need to do. So my friend Mike was the person who did that, and I trust him as a filmmaker. He's an amazing filmmaker. And so when I was able to, get him on board and also, really create just a team of experts around me, you feel so supported, and you are not alone. Like I was so not alone. It was so a team of people who were, really like putting something amazing together. And so, yeah, I did a lot of different jobs, but I did none of them alone. Except maybe acting because I was no, but you're with scene partners all day, right? So it was like, if once again, if I didn't hire Joey, like maybe it would have been harder, but he is the easiest person to act with and to, luckily for me, have chemistry with in the world. So like that became a simple job. It became something that was really enjoyable, and the whole thing was just really enjoyable because every day I felt like it was such a team effort.
I love that you brought up trust, because I feel that trust is crucial
Mhm.
when you're trying to do work on a group project and do
Mhm.
it at a high level. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from that.
Absolutely. I mean, once again, it goes back to, trusting your instincts on who the right people are for the job because, I was so, lucky in who we were able to assemble, but they were the complete right people. The team who made this film were the perfect team to make this film, and that doesn't happen a lot. You know, I think film sets, they are luckily, like, most of the time a pretty smooth machine, but this kind of film set where it seemed like everyone was really excited to be there, that's rarer. And it was really exciting to, be a part of that.
And Max, you've worked on projects like Search Party, Orange is the New Black, and Marry Me alongside Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
And then you just recently founded Malibu Bro Productions, your own
Mhm.
company, which is
Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you.
What lessons did you learn from working on those sets that you've brought with you into your venture?
I mean, so many. It's being on a set of like that size, especially sets like TV sets, and also Marry Me's a, it was a studio film. So like there's so much you learn on those sets. It's very much more of a machine than an independent film. Like an independent film is, sort of like a ragtag team who's like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna put this film together. It's gonna be awesome. Like everyone's gonna work our butts off and it's gonna be so great. And a TV set and a studio film, like obviously it's still a bunch of people working together for a common goal. It's collaborative, but it's also, it needs to run a lot smoother. There's a lot
Mhm.
more checks and balances. Nothing can sort of slip through the cracks at that level.
Mm.
So as a producer, I think I learned more on those sets than even as an actor or as a writer or a director. I think specifically as a producer, you're looking at all these moving parts and being like, how do they make this run smoothly? And so I was trying to kind of like literally do the math on set of like, how does this happen? How does, what's literally the choreography of this set? Because there has to be a balance. There has to be a agreed upon movement of everybody. So, I think that's really what I took away was sort of like this, how does this well-oiled machine work? And then you study it on set. And luckily I was able to be on those sets where I could study it.
And one thing that I heard you talk about that I think is so cool is that you put together a playlist
Mhm.
before you even write a single word down on the page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk to us about that process of yours? And that's really cool.
I think that specifically comes from being a musical theater person. I think I'm so inspired by music that it's just something that is so like, it needs to be a part of my creative process. A lot of the time, like the first inspiration I ever have for something is a song. And I'm like, "Oh my god, this would make a perfect opening scene song." So, like, everything I do has to start with that because otherwise I don't think I can really envision and feel a part of the world. And every world I create sort of has to feel very full dimensional, very, like it's all around. So I need to be immersed in it to be able to write it, and that's really where the playlist comes from. And it's a fluid thing. Like songs will move in and out of it. But I think that for me, I'm like, even when I want like people reading a script of mine, I'll send the playlist because I'll be like, I used to literally write the songs into the script. Now I don't because you don't want people to feel like they have to pay the money for that song, and whatever that song is, it costs money. So I don't do that actively anymore, but I do just send a playlist along to be like, while you read the script, like this is the kind of thing to hear, or while you review the materials, like listen to this because it is such an integral part of the creative process for me, and I know what I want these worlds to sound like.
Hmm.
And things like this has a soundtrack of 15 songs that I hand selected because it's so important. Like I feel like it has to be a part of everything I do is what goes here musically. And on the same side of that coin, like the composer I worked with, Charles Humanry, like I was in the room with him probably more than a lot of filmmakers are because I really needed to sort of hear the world and create it with him. And he's brilliant. He didn't need me there, but I very much needed to be there.
That's interesting. And now that you say it this way, it makes total sense because you can listen to a song and think about, a trip to the beach, or
Mhm.
listen to a song that you
Oh,
listened to at high
totally.
school, and you quite literally time travel.
Literally, if Party in the USA comes on, I am back in, my car I shared with my twin sister, and we're driving home from a specific Rosh Hashanah. Like, I can imagine
Yep.
it so clearly. Actually, it was Yom Kippur Breakfast, but still, I can imagine it so clearly. And, I think that's the thing. Music is vital to the human experience, for me at least. And so it's something that, like, it does trigger a emotional response, right? Like, you feel it. And so when writing, I want people to have an emotional response. And for me, when the right song hits in something I'm watching,
Oh, yeah.
changes everything.
Well, have you ever seen those memes on social media that are like, scary movies are only scary because of
Because
the
of the
music?
sounds.
Yes,
Yeah,
or the
yeah, I have.
sounds.
It's like, let's change the sounds and put in something else.
Yes.
I also love every time they do the meme with, like, the "What I've Done" from the end of Transformers. It's always like the music starts and it's like this epic sound. But I think, it is that. It's like music colors the way we watch things. Like, if it had a different sound, it would be Scary Movie 3. Right? Like, it
Yeah.
would be. It's intentional how these things are written.
And Max, what did making things like this teach you about yourself, both as a filmmaker, but also personally?
I think it taught me so much. Number 1 is that you don't know anything. Like, truly, like, I don't mean that in a way of, like, I like, I'm an idiot. I mean it in a way of, like, every day is a learning opportunity to learn from people, and if you're not opening yourself up to that, then you are missing the opportunity. And things like this, I felt like every day I learned more about myself as a person. I learned more about myself as an artist. I learned more about myself in, producing, directing, all of it. And it was because I was able to open myself to everyone on that set and really take every lesson that, they were able to impart on me. And I think, there might be people who say, well, a director shouldn't be the one taking the lessons. And I would say that that is the complete wrong approach. I think that directors should be a team leader, but someone who is always open to learning. The thing I find most exciting about being in this business is that I think every day I learn something new. And I hope that continues until, I'm 85, because I think it will. I think that's what this business leans itself into. That's what this creative process leans itself into. It's that every day is a new opportunity to learn from people. And, as someone who just loves creative humans, I think that's, I mean, just the most special thing. And things like this was the time where I got to do it the most, where I really just got to soak it up. And I feel like now, when I write a script, I take every lesson I learned from when I was making things like this. Now I will immediately edit things out instead of waiting until I'm in the editing room, right? Like, I know when something feels superfluous. I know when some joke isn't gonna land. And I just have a better sense of what works. Um, and luckily that's just because of everything I learned from everyone I worked with. So, um, things like this is something that I hope will be sort of the first in many amazing learning opportunities while making things.
And if there are any creatives or actors that are just starting their careers and they feel called to create their own films or TV
Yeah,
shows, what advice would you give them?
I would say you're gonna get a lot of no's and don't get discouraged. Like, it's if you are someone who gets hurt by the word no, or by rejection, I would say that, like, you should not be doing that, because it's gonna be tough. And obviously, I'm sure there's people who get only yeses, and great for them. But I don't think that you should have the mindset that that's what's gonna happen. I think you have to be prepared to get a lot of no's, and also to have your own sense of, who you are, and that, like, even if you're getting no's, your project is still worth making, and that, it's worth continuing. Um, and you have to have that sense of self-worth. And also, I think the other element of it is that you have to be willing to take notes, and realize that someone giving you notes on your script isn't them saying it's not good, or it's not worth making. It's them saying, here's how it could be better. And so many people who came before you have knowledge. And so I would say soak it up, take it in, and it's cliche, but don't give up. Like you can't be someone who lets it affect you enough that you're like, I'm out. Because in that case, it's not going to happen. And then you might as well not start. Instead, like just keep going. Like
Right.
every no, it's just that. It's a no from one person.
I'm so glad that you said that because I feel like some people can take a no and just think, "Oh my gosh, this isn't for me," or
Yeah,
like this project is not worth pursuing.
right.
But you're so right. It's not there's so many people. All it takes is one yes.
Absolutely. And people in like specifically this industry, but tons of different industries, financiers, studios, whatever, say no for reasons that don't even have to do with your script, right? Or don't have to do with anything to do with you. So I think, if you were to take that personally, you're doing harm to yourself and it's for no reason.
Right. And also then the question comes up too, like why there's no point in taking it personally because it's not about you to begin with anyway.
Right,
It's
right,
about the project.
right. Right. And also, like, once again, Buzz Koenig actually said something to me at the very beginning when we got a pass or something. He said, this is a very special film. And because of that, we have to wait until this film finds its family. And this film will find its family. And to me, it changed the whole perspective because you don't want everyone in the world to work on your project. You want the right people.
Right.
And it's worth waiting for. Because if I didn't have the right people in the room, then the right movie isn't made. So it's worth waiting for the right people. And if someone says no, it's also good for you because you shouldn't be working with someone who isn't passionate about your project.
Oh, I love that. That's a great point. That's a
Yeah.
huge lesson right there.
Yeah. So it's really like just move on from it and keep going. That's really what I would say. Yeah.
Right. What do you think the biggest lesson that you've learned so far has been?
For me, it's really been, you know, just I don't really know how to say this, but it's been that this is the right journey for me. Like that everything in my life has shown me to keep going and to, keep pursuing this path. And I think, what I learned most from this whole process and from just being me so far in my life is that I'm really grateful. Like I'm really just grateful to have the opportunities and be given the chances that I've been given. Whether it's, being cast on Orange is the New Black and getting to work on that set or, getting to make this film or getting to do whatever's next. Like these are things that I don't take for granted. And I feel like it's a responsibility to, be able to get to do this. And so what I've learned is that it's something I take extremely seriously, which is why I work really hard at it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but that doesn't mean it's not work. So you have to take it seriously. Yeah.
And Max, where's the best place for people to keep up with you, your work, and everything that you're doing?
Yeah. You could follow me at the thing I post on the most is Instagram. So the Max T Show on Instagram, also Malibu Bro Pro on Instagram. And lastly, I am on TikTok at the Max T Show. Same name because consistency is important. But yeah, that's where people can find me.
And if you could go back in time and offer your younger self one bit of advice specifically tailored to you and your life's trajectory,
Mm.
what would it be?
I was such a confident little kid, which is so strange. But I think I would tell myself like, you got this. Like keep going. Like I think like you know it. Like I think I did from the moment I was, saw cats. Like this is what I'm meant to do. And so I think if I were to go back in time, I would just say like it might not happen on the timeline that you expect now, but that's okay. Like just keep going because it will happen and it'll happen when it's meant to, when you're ready for it. So, yeah.
Well, Max, thank you so much for
Thank
taking the time to
you.
do this. This is so much fun.
I had a blast. Yeah, thanks for having me.